Ms. Andersen, the recording has been started.
Thank you. All right, so for those of you that are in the conference room of Coeur d'Alene, if you have not already done so, can you please sign in on the sheet in the back of the room and be sure to indicate if you wish to provide comments today. So good evening, everyone. We are on the record in the matter of encroachment permit application L95S5884. The applicant is North Idaho Maritime. My name is Michelle Andersen. I am the Operations Division Administrator for the Department of Lands and the hearing coordinator in this proceeding. It is 6:03 p.m., November 4th, 2020. The public hearing today is being conducted both in person and with Zoom. I am physically located in the Coeur d'Alene staff office. Some of you are participating through your own Zoom connections, while others of you are present at the Idaho Department of Lands office in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. This is a scheduled time and place for IDL hearing number PH-2020-PUB-22-003. This public hearing is being recorded with audio and video via Zoom. Before I open the hearing for comment, I would like to ask Chris Gozzo with the Idaho Department of Lands just to give a brief tutorial on how to use Zoom. Mr. Gozzo?
Thank you, Ms. Andersen. Let me go ahead and share an image.
It was very professional.
Okay, are you able to see that, Ms. Andersen? Thank you. So I'm going to go over some basics of Zoom for those who it's your first time using it, or anybody that would just like a refresher. So the screenshot that I'm sharing here is just a picture of a Zoom interface, probably similar to what most of you are seeing. And the major functionality we're going to talk about is muting, which is down in the bottom left, the first red circled item there. It's a picture of the microphone. If you need to mute your microphone, go ahead and hit that. This may look a little different to those connecting in from mobile devices, but you should still see something similar. The other functionality is the chat button, which is towards the center. And if you don't see this group of icons along the bottom, if you move your mouse towards the bottom of the meeting, sometimes it automatically hides. It should pop back up. As we're going through and getting a list of individuals to take public comment, for those that are connected in to Zoom, you can click on the chat button. And then as you'll see also in the image over on the right, where it says to everyone, if you can drop that down and change it to our hearing officer, Michelle Andersen, and then you can go ahead and message the information she'd like from you. So your name and other information that she'll ask for you to submit. That way she'll have a list of those that would like to give public comment, and then she can go through the list. For those that are calling in, and I don't think I noticed any, but just in case somebody calls in just with a telephone, you won't be able to have that chat functionality. But as we're taking public comment, we will go through and ask others to give public comment as well for anybody that we've missed that doesn't have the Zoom functionality. So we will make sure and take public comment from everybody. And if there are any questions, please let me know. And that should be, that's the basics of Zoom that we will need for this meeting. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gozzo. Since, just for your information, I am keeping track of those that are wanting to give comments. So if I look away for a minute, it's just that I'm trying to make sure to write your name down in the order that you have indicated that you would like to give comment. The Idaho Department of Lands is responsible for administering the Lake Protection Act, Idaho Code Title 58, Chapter 13, which states, the legislature of the state of Idaho hereby declares that the public health, interests, safety, and welfare requires that all encroachments upon, in, or above the beds or waters of navigable lakes of the state be regulated, in order that the protection of property, navigation, fish and wildlife habitat, aquatic life, recreation, aesthetic beauty, and water quality can be given due consideration and weighed against the navigational or economic necessity or justification for or benefit to be derived from the proposed encroachment. No encroachment on, in, or above the beds of or waters of any navigable lake in the state shall hereafter be made unless approval therefor has been given as provided in this act. My responsibility is to consider the application and the written record, accept and weigh evidence submitted by the parties, and take public comment in order to determine whether the proposed encroachment meets the applicable statutes, rules, and case law. I will then issue a preliminary order, which will be reviewed by the Director of the Idaho Department of Lands. He will then issue a final order no more than 30 days after conclusion of the hearing. This 30-day time limit is a requirement of Idaho Code. The department has provided me with the agency record, which is posted on IDL's webpage and consists of preliminary application and correspondence documents listed in the administrative record, July 27, 2020, amended encroachment permit application, August 13th, 2020, notice of application sent to Idaho Department of Fish and Game, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, Idaho Department of Water Resources, Idaho Department of Transportation, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Kootenai County Parks, Recreation, and Waterways, Kootenai County Marine Division, Kootenai County Building, Planning, and Zoning, Kootenai Environmental Alliance, Panhandle Health District 1, Idaho Conservation League, and adjacent neighbors. August 17th, 2020, email from Idaho Transportation Department. August 19th, 2020, affidavit of publication from Coeur d'Alene Press for the notice of application. August 20th, 2020, photo drawing, Cougar Bay Winter Storage amended. September 1st, 2020, comment, Idaho Fish and Game. September 4th, 2020, revised encroachment permit application with photos. September 9th, 2020, notice of revised application, agencies and neighbors. September 16th, 2020, comment, Idaho State Department of Agriculture. September 18th, 2020, neighbor consent to application, Thomas Burns. September 23rd, 2020, neighbor consent to application, Edwin Haglund. October 1st, 2020, comment, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. October 2nd, 2020, neighbor consent to application, Martha Cornwall McCain. October 5th, 2020, notice of appointment of hearing coordinator and public hearing. October 7th, 2020, neighbor consent to application, David Yaden. October 13th, 2020, newspaper ad and pictures. October 29th, 2020, amended notice of hearing regarding exchange of hearing exhibits and official notice. and numerous public comments. Before we begin, I would like to establish the order in which I will take comment from the parties and any public witnesses. First, I would like to hear from the authorized representative of the applicant, North Idaho Maritime, to provide an overview of their application and offer any additional information or comments in support of the application. Second, I will provide an opportunity for any governmental agencies other than the Department of Lands to provide comment. I don't know if we have any other governmental entities joining us today, but I have read the written comments provided by Idaho DEQ, Idaho Fish and Game, and the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. After the governmental entities, I will then take comment from any member of the public that wishes to provide oral comment. Before I address the order in which I will take that comment, I would like each of you to know that I have read all of the written comments that have been received by the Department of Lands as of 5 p.m. today. If you have previously submitted written comments and are considering oral comments, please know that I have read all of them. I will assign equal weight to both written and oral comments. Don't feel like you need to duplicate your comments. If they are in writing, I have seen them and am taking due consideration of them. As to the order of public witness statements, I will first take comment from those persons that are physically present at the Lands Office in Coeur d'Alene, and will ask the coordinator of that conference room to ask for comments in the order in which people have signed up on the sheet of paper. After hearing from those persons in the conference room, I will then take comments from those of you who are connected via Zoom. And as we mentioned before, we will take comments in the order names were entered into the Zoom chat box. So look for that chat feature at the bottom of the screen, and rather than selecting everyone, you will select Michelle Andersen and then type in your name and your address or email, some sort of contact information so that we know who you are and that you provided comment today. If you have a document that you want to provide in aid of your oral comments and you can't upload them right now, please just show them on the screen and get them to the Lands Office no later than close of business tomorrow. That way they will become part of the record. If you aren't able to put your name in the chat box, don't worry about that. After we have gotten through everyone who has entered their name, I will ask for any other people that weren't able to do that and if they would like to make comments. Then I will ask for comments from those on the phone. I will be sure that everyone who wants to make comments will get a chance to. After the public comments, I will hear from the authorized representative of the Idaho Department of Lands. Finally, I will provide North Idaho Maritime an opportunity to reply and to make any closing remarks as the applicant. Because this is a public hearing in which I am taking comment, there isn't cross-examination or questioning by anyone present of North Idaho Maritime or of the Department of Lands. All public witness testimony should be directed towards me as the hearing coordinator. That said, I may have some questions, so don't be surprised if I have a question or two here and there. For everyone who is speaking, this is being recorded, so please be sure to speak very clearly, perhaps slow down a bit from your normal speaking cadence. And also please be respectful and courteous of others when they are speaking. Please silence your cell phones and keep your Zoom connections and phones muted when you're not speaking. When it is your turn to speak, please state and spell your name. I'm going to pause for a minute just so that I can continue to add names to the list of those of you that have indicated through Zoom that you would like to make public comments. I will now open the hearing. Who all will be presenting for North Idaho Maritime?
I'm muted.
Good evening, Ms. Anderson and everyone. My name is Rand Wickman, R-A-N-D-W-I-C-H-M-A-N, and I'm here representing North Idaho Maritime tonight. John Condon is also here, and he'll be following up after my comments. So, good evening, everyone. I want to start by publicly thanking the IDL staff for their assistance in this application. I personally am a latecomer to this particular issue, but I know that dock storage on Cougar Bay has been an issue in search of a solution for more than 10 years. Current and former IDL staff has dedicated a lot of time to the effort, which we appreciate, and we are hopeful that this permit can bring some closure to it. As outlined in the application, North Idaho Maritime is seeking an encroachment permit for dock storage with a work area that would allow for assembly of new docks and repair and rebuilding of docks that required such service. The total area covered by the permit is 5 acres. Winter dock storage is the primary purpose of the application and the use that takes up the greatest portion of the requested area, likely 2 to 3 acres as needed. A smaller portion of the site would be used for interim storage of floating encroachments that are awaiting repair, delivery to a new owner, or removal from the lake. The other activity that is proposed for this site is a work area to allow for dock repair and assembly of modular dock sections within the storage area. These modular sections would not be built on this site. The need for winter storage seems to be well documented and understood by the department. The department has issued permits to other operators in different areas of Coeur d'Alene Lake, as well as in Cougar Bay. From staff's remarks in the record, they support that aspect of this request, and we appreciate their support. In light of all that, I'm not going to spend more time extolling the virtues of wintertime dock storage. I'd rather spend the time discussing other issues that warrant additional explanation. And so let's start with the year-round aspect of the storage area. With wintertime storage, the stored docks return home at the beginning of each summer season. The infrastructure for that storage, however, remains. That includes the piling, the containment booms, or whatever else that was used to secure that raft of docks over the winter. Because of the continued presence of those necessary improvements, the area does not suddenly become conducive to all types of boating activity once the docks are gone. The second part of this is that the Marine Division and recreational boaters have to deal with cast-off docks, deadheads, and floating debris all year long. These are items that no one claims ownership of, but have to be removed from the lake so that they aren't causing a hazard to navigation or a nuisance to the downwind property owner where it happens to wash ashore. The lake currents and wind tend to take these items to the north end of the lake, so Cougar Bay is a logical place to have an area where such items can be towed and stored until they can be removed. Lacking such an area, I've personally seen them get towed to public boat launches or marinas where they just cause different problems. They need to be towed to a place where they are out of the way and then can be disposed of. This is one of the services that North Idaho Maritime provides, and my client tells me they have done well over $100,000 worth of work on waterways cleanup in the last year alone. This is an unrecognized and unappreciated service that the dock service contractors provide, and it used to be paid for by Avista, the county, the sawmills, and the Log Owners Association. So because that infrastructure for the storage remains in place year-round, this dock storage area is the most appropriate place to temporarily hold these floating hazards until they can be removed from the lake. We agree that this storage area should not become the final resting place for such items. North Idaho Maritime does not want to be paying lease fees to the state to store the community's refuse, but they also cannot be expected to remove these items within hours or a couple of days from when they show up without notice in their storage area. Accordingly, there is a need for the storage area to exist year-round, and it serves a clear public benefit, sequestering these navigational hazards until they can be removed from the lake. So let's talk about removing these items from the lake. That has been difficult in the past. Most of the facilities for moving materials off of the water so that they can be properly disposed of on land have gone away with the redevelopment of the mill sites. That has made it difficult to remove this material. In most cases, you can't just tow it to a boat launch and slip it onto a trailer. It often needs to be removed with a crane. We believe we will have approval for that use at the Wolf Lodge facility in the near future. And that will facilitate removal of docks that are no longer serviceable. That's the appropriate solution and should address the concern for the accumulation of junk in the storage area. With regard to the use of the proposed area in Cougar Bay as a work area for dock repair and assembly, well, dock repairs can sometimes be done at a property's owner's location, but sometimes it cannot. Dock repair generally needs to be done in a protected area with relatively calm water. Those conditions do not always exist at a property owner's location. There are places where, because of nearby encroachments, water depth, shoreline configuration, or other conditions, you simply can't get the necessary equipment close enough to facilitate a repair. In such circumstances, towing the dock to an approved work area is the only solution to facilitate repairs. Again, approval of the Wolf Lodge location will assist in that regard, but that site is inaccessible due to water depth for a significant portion of the year and has very limited space. The space in Cougar Bay is needed to fill that gap. And so that's a more complete explanation of what we propose to do at this site and our justification for this request. All aspects of it are in support of aiding navigation and safety on the lake. We acknowledge that we have not provided the safety, maintenance, and lighting program that the department will require one for this use. That was being worked on today. It will be provided as soon as we can get it to you. And I know that Mr. Condon will address that in greater detail in his comments. With that, Ms. Andersen, we respectfully request your approval of the request, and I will take any questions that you may have at this time, or see you again in rebuttal, perhaps.
Thank you. I do have a question for you. And it's regarding the pilings that will be used to secure the group of floating docks. My understanding is all of those pilings are currently existing in the bed and waters of the lake?
Yes, I believe that's correct. I think probably better to direct that question to Mr. Condon, who's more familiar with the conditions out there at the actual site.
Okay.
And he will follow me up here, so come on, John.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. I'm John Condon, Johncondon. My wife Gail and I are the owners of North Idaho Maritime. Basically, I'd like to start with a little history of Cougar Bay and take that to the current status of Cougar Bay, and then lead into our future plans in Cougar Bay if this permit is approved. So this all starts back in the turn of the century, I believe 1904, when the Blackwell Mill was developed there. That's when storage in Cougar Bay first started. It progressed from there until in 1918, A.B. Lafferty started Lafferty towing and barge service, which was subsequently taken over by Bricks and then Foss, and then in 2004, North Idaho Maritime. So at the heyday of the log storage, there was currently, there was 104 acres of storage in Cougar Bay. Today, we come before you to refine that to 5 acres. So subsequently, all of that infrastructure that supported 104 acres of storage in Cougar Bay still exists. And to answer your question, our plan is to rehabilitate and upgrade that facility to handle this future need. At the time that this was all started, and throughout that period from 1918 moving forward until approximately 20 years ago, Cougar Ridge was pristine wildlife habitat. It is not today. North Idaho Maritime, after taking over in 2004, conducted 90% of its business for the mills and the associated long owners for 4 to 5 years before the mills then eventually shut down. That's the first time of which, and that's going back to about 2008, when I first sat down with IDL at my office at Blackwell with Roger Jansen, and I believe at the time Mike Denny was stepping into that role. That's when we first addressed this issue about storage in Cougar Bay. And I informed them that we would no longer need 104 acres of storage, but that we would need, because at that time we made the decision, instead of closing shop, to try to address the future needs in the area because of the development and so forth. So we reinvested, retooled, reinvented the business, and I asked them at that time for 10 acres to continue those operations, which already existed within the footprint of the 140 acres. Skip Murphy was already storing docks in our footprint. We were already storing docks within that footprint of the 140 acre storage. The plan was to shrink that down to 10 acres. That process started 12, 15 years ago. And I'm here before you today about the same issue. We have a file that's 3 or 4 inches thick of the numerous times we've approached this situation. And I'm just asking you this time that maybe we can come to some resolution. We have spent countless hours and money and the department's time to address this issue. I don't think there's any question as to the need for this. The department itself has approved roughly 4,000 encroachments on the lake. And when you put 4,000 encroachments on the lake, you also need to approve the facilities and the infrastructure in order to properly maintain those facilities and those encroachments. Because if you don't, they're going to become hazards on the waterway. And a lot of this debris that we speak of that ends up in Cougar Bay does not belong to North Idaho Maritime. The debris, through the natural course of the wind and the current, comes down the riverways, and especially at high waters. It comes down the Joe, it comes down the Coeur d'Alene, it comes down the lake, and before it exits the lake, it back eddies into Cougar Bay because there's a restriction on the Spokane River. So it back eddies into Cougar Bay, and it deposits a lot of debris, a lot of old docks in Cougar Bay. Those are not there because North Idaho Maritime transported them there. We are, in fact, responsible for a percentage of those that we do deal with. And we've always done that. Historically, when we had the log storage out there, we also dealt with that debris. I had a full-time man, Oscar Mooney, in the potlatch, did that every day. And the Log Owners Association and the mills and Avista kicked in to subsidize that operation. Now, since the mills went away, so did that funding. And so that has fallen upon us. And we spend between $25,000 and $50,000 a year just on disposal fees, not including all of the efforts, the man hours into transporting and dealing with that debris. So right now you got Cougar Bay out there currently. You have, it's not heavily developed around the shoreline. It's a very fragile shoreline. And it is thus because the BLM and the Nature Conservancy owns a lot of the shoreline in there. And it's excellent bird, waterfowl, and fish habitat. The reason why it exists in the way it does is because it's been protected for over 100 years by the storage area. It's been buffered. There's a lot of shallow waters. There's a lot of wetlands and estuaries that come out of Cougar Gulch, the creek. And it's also enjoyed by a lot of watercraft, not power boats, but kayakers and paddle boarders and hunters and fishermen. It's a different bay than what exists on the rest of the lake. And it's also ideal for what we do. And I also would ask those that are opposed, and I have done this historically, if they have a better place to do this. I've been at this for about 16 years on this lake now, and I have yet to find a better place to do this. It's a necessity, and there's not a better place to do this on the lake. Now, recently, with the development of Cougar Ridge specifically over the last 20 years, you've got a group of people that have been very blessed with the resources to build on Cougar Ridge. When they built there, when they bought their property, we were in Cougar Bay. When they built there, we were in Cougar Bay. And I don't take that from them. But what I do take exception from is that the fact that they've been blessed with those resources to develop their home sites up there does not give them the right. They've already taken all the wildlife habitat away. They don't have the right, and I ask you not to give them the right to also remove local business. Our plan moving forward would be to take those already established facilities there, upgrade them and enhance them so that we can better serve that need. And we can do it safely. Right now, there is certain areas, as Rand mentioned, that we can conduct this work around the lake. But because of all the traffic and all of the wind events and so forth, it is not safe for our personnel to conduct that business out there in the lake. We need safe harbor to do so. And there is certain things that it's not just a wintertime activity. And you've witnessed certainly this year with wind events. Every time we have a wind event, we have massive amounts of damage. And there is no one operator, there's no one location that can handle all of that on the lake. So subsequently, we need these facilities to deal with that. It's not only the damage to property, it's also the hazards to the boaters out there that are created when docks break loose, when debris is in the lake. We need these facilities to address that need. So in that plan, moving forward, along with upgrading, there is a lot of these facilities that they are in need of repair. Some of the piling need to be replaced. Some of the booms need to be replaced. We also need to enhance the lighting out there. And our plan is to get with the Coast Guard and put in lighting that meets their requirements. We don't today have what the requirements would be. We used to light that in the log storage, when that all went away, so did the lighting and the overall footprint of the 140 acres. Today, the county did take steps. They deployed no wake buoys on the perimeter of the bay because of the hazards that exist in the bay, the deadheads, the shallow waters. And so that's why it's predominantly more of a bay used by the sportsmen, the fishermen, the kayakers, and so forth. So our plan would be to enhance that facility, to make it more manageable. And if we could define it through this process, we would better be able to define what and have controls over the area out there. Right now, it's somewhat undefined. And our plan also would be to incorporate game cameras on top of the piling out there so that we can see when there's illegal dumping out there and so forth. I've personally had conversations with numerous providers on the lake that told me that they were instructed to tow stuff and tie it up in Cougar Bay. I didn't pursue that to an end because I currently don't have really the authority to do so. So that's what I'm looking for, is that definition, that authority to be able to manage that facility better. And with that, we would also propose that we did monthly inspections and then even report to, maybe Department of Lands, whatever agency that would require of overall management of that site. But I think there's some things that, a lot of people that are new to this area, that don't know the history of the area, don't realize, for one, that is not all North Idaho Maritime's garbage and debris. They also don't know the shoreline of that area and the osprey nests that we've built out there, the platforms. They don't know how fragile that shoreline is and what would happen if you remove the storage buffer from the middle of the bay and also introduced the kind of recreational boating you have, where we have so many problems on other areas of the lake, like the river and other areas of the lake and the bays. It would destroy that bay. I think there's those that recognize that, but some of those that don't live on the water there and just view it from above don't realize the ecosystem that exists there and everything that is there to support it. So once again, those are the facts as I know them. And I just ask that you consider. Thank you. And I'm open for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Yes, I do have a question. As you just made mention upgrading and enhancing, and I guess I would just like to know a little more what you mean by that. I don't recall that being mentioned in the application. Does that include changing out pilings, or can you elaborate on that a little more for me?
Yes, I can. So that would include replacing pilings as necessary that already exist out there. Under the current rules of IDL, we can replace existing piling. It would also include upgrading the log boom system. It's in disrepair. So we would, spend the capital to improve that. We would, to make it a more confined and more structurally sound storage area. So basically you have dolphin piling that exists in the backbone of the storage area. We would even propose maybe to add the piling as necessary there. And then the existing log booms that are in disrepair, we would spend the capital necessary to replace those in kind new and or refurbished booms and boom chains, so that we could better contain all of that debris and docks and so forth out there. Currently, you know, with the inundation of traffic on the lake, it is nearly impossible, and it's not a good mix. I spent years lobbying Boise to, and also agreed to participate in the expense of developing a commercial bulkhead somewhere in the lake at Higgins Point specifically. And all of those efforts didn't get any traction. So that is why it was necessary for us as a company to spend the money and the time and the effort to develop Wolf Lodge for that purpose. We're currently 2 years into a process there to try to develop that so we could replace the facilities we lost at the mill, which they turned into a city park, which is previously where we dealt with all the debris and so forth. Back in the day, we basically gathered all the debris and we hauled it to the mill, and they extracted it from the lake, and they stockpiled it in the log yard, and then they burned it. Currently today, we have to take it to you know, a boat launch or something on the off hours, or you know, when we're not conflicting with the boating public. We have to load it into a roll-off container. We have to transport it to a grinding yard. And that's why, you know, the expense and everything is so great to deal with a lot of that debris, which I will say again, is not entirely ours. But that's the logistics of it. And that's what, you know, we are putting the effort into overcoming with developing Wolf Lodge and hopefully with re-permitting Cougar Bay, because we need to be able to do those kind of activities in the off season when we're not conflicting with the boating public.
Okay, thank you. Just to further clarify, in your response, you made the comment, replace pilings as necessary. So in your opinion, are there pilings now that would need to be replaced, or are you looking to the future that you would need to replace them as it becomes necessary?
Both. There's piling within those clusters that exist out there today that are broken off. Now, we can certainly, when you have a piling cluster that includes somewhere between 4 and 6 piling, and a few are broken off, they need to be replaced eventually. We would like to, and the only reason we haven't done it to this point is because, like I say, I've been working on nearly 12 years to re-permit this, and I didn't have the permitting in place to be able to do so. So it would be my desire to immediately start upgrading that facility and replace broken piling and replace broken boom sticks, and really better manage and enhance that that site.
So do you have a sense at this point in time of how many pilings that you would propose to install?
You mean replace?
Yes.
30. Within that 5-acre backbone. And the reason that, you know, that facility needs that is as opposed to some of the other storage areas that are located in more protected areas towards the back of some of the other bays on the south end of the lake. This area still needs some good infrastructure to be able to properly contain, you know, the docks.
Okay. To your knowledge, do you know if these pilings that you are proposing to tie on to are already covered by one or more encroachment permits?
There was previously, that whole area was permitted, yes. I can't tell you as to whether currently today it's permitted, but historically it was permitted, yes.
Do you happen to know who it was permitted to?
It would have been permitted most recently to Foss. So when we bought, so originally to Lafferty, then Bricks, and then Foss. And when we bought the operations, that permit stayed in Foss. We sublet from Foss for those 4 to 5 years that we continued operating them.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Condon.
Thank you.
Okay, I would now like to ask if there are any governmental agency representatives with us today that would like to provide comment at this time. All right, well, it looks like we don't have any other governmental agency representatives with us today to comment. I would now like to open it up to our public witnesses, and I will be limiting our presentation time to 3 minutes per commenter. And we will start with those witnesses that are presently or physically present at the Department of Land's office in Coeur d'Alene. So if you could approach in order of those, how you have signed up on the sign-in sheet, please. And please be sure to say and spell your name. And also indicate if you have any documents that you wish to submit.
Ms. Anderson, my name is William Chapman, C-H-A-P-M-A-N. I have already submitted some documents to Amity Fusan, and I believe you probably have those within your collection. I would just briefly like to say that I view this log boom every single day. I'm probably one of the closest people to it. And I find it to be a necessary facility, and I agree that there is a need on this lake for it. The thing that I don't agree with is the fact that this is inherited from the logging companies, and the facility is using the infrastructure that the logging companies used, which is primarily long linear strips of booms. If you put anything out in people's visual path, the thing that makes the smallest impression is a circle. But a circle is difficult to work with, almost impossible on a lake. So the next least visually impacting thing is a square. And I have recommended in my documents to you that they be allowed to have 2 more acres just to the west of their 2-acre work site, making a 4-acre square or rectangle, I guess it's probably closer to. And that would decrease the visual impact and still give them plenty of room to do their operations. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me? Okay.
No, sir. Thank you.
We're done here.
Okay, thank you, Amity. All right, then we will move to our public witnesses that will be providing comment through Zoom. And we will be going in the order of which you have indicated your interest in commenting that I received through the chat box. And so we will be starting with Mr. Andrew Bird.
Hi there. This is Andrew Bird, A-N-D-R-E-W, last name Bird, B-Y-R-D. I recently purchased a lot on the Cougar Ridge that Mr. Condon speaks about, and I don't necessarily disagree with the fact that what he is needing to do is useful in our area. However, I don't foresee a reason why he mentions that he needs to upgrade infrastructure, that he can't form a facility that allows him to do all of his work needed from his current job site. So I disagree with the fact, and I suggest that you reject his application. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Next, I have Don Gross.
Yes, my name is Don Gross, or Donald Gross, D-O-N-A-L-D-G-R-O-S-S. I live at 2808 Baywoods Road, which is overlooking Cougar Bay. I am also the president of Cougar Bay Homeowners Association. I have lived at this address for 18 years. We were here when the logs set in the bay. Then the logs went away and in came the industrial equipment, barges, cranes, derelict docks, crumbling boathouses. There was a hearing October of 2008 where Director George Bacon ruled and denied encroachment permit for North Idaho Maritime. The reason given was failure to meet the Lake Protection Act and that the Idaho Department of Lands administrative requirements. I've seen nothing to change that ruling. Even though they were denied, North Idaho Maritime used and continued to use Cougar Bay as a dumping ground. North Idaho Maritime has had years to prove that they could be good stewards, but instead of being used as a seasonal dock storage, the bay is used as a dumping ground full of debris, which over the years has gotten even worse. Recently, I had family members over to my home. They commented on how beautiful the view is, but asked what all the junk was in the bay. North Idaho Maritime has destroyed the beauty of Cougar Bay and devalued our homes. The bay is used as a recreational area by all. It's next to a bird sanctuary and is navigated by an even increasing number of boaters. This debris puts people at risk. North Idaho Maritime has received an encroachment permit for their property in Wolf Lodge Bay. Our association cannot emphasize enough our opposition to any permit in any part of the bay. They have already had Wolf Lodge Bay permit for this activity. How much more of the lake do we need to give up? The timing for this meeting had been better served in the spring. The reasons being is COVID-19, people are not willing to leave their home and some may not be able to Zoom. Number two, people may not be aware of this meeting as many don't get the Coeur d'Alene newspaper or do not go to the Department of Lands website. Three, docks, boathouses, and other assorted things have already started moving in on top of the things that we already have in the bay. This is the day after the election. Many people are glued to their TVs and unwilling to step away. Please look at the addresses of the letters you receive. not just the number of letters you receive. The people who live every day with this debris need consideration. We ask the Idaho Department of Lands, for all the reasons I have pointed out, to please rule on behalf of all the people who use our bay. We are asking you to do the right thing. Vote to deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Next, I have Julie Vieira.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute. It's the beauty of Zoom for everyone. So first of all, thank you for including us in this meeting. We live up in the ridge of Cougar Bay and wanted to make a comment in regards to the utilization of this bay. Mr. Condon, you made a resource comment in regards to us being blessed with resources. The first time that I visited Coeur d'Alene was back in the 70s. I am a native Idahoan, and the beauty of the lake was outstanding. It was someplace that I wanted to make home. And as my husband and I went to the University of Idaho and came up here regularly to the playground, then Highway 95 was the route that we would take. And Cougar Bay was our first breathtaking view of what Coeur d'Alene's natural resource is. We want to make a plea to this board and this hearing to deny. We go down probably multiple times during the summer to kayak in the bay. And these obstructions had been in our way. One day we were down there during a windstorm and stuff was moving and tossing back and forth in the early spring. It became a hazard to us as we were trying to kayak around that area. We also go to the bird refuge, and this area and this obstruction, you can view from the top of the bird refuge all the way around. You can see it from our back deck. You can see it from NIC Beach and the Coeur d'Alene Resort. We need to make sure that we preserve the beauty that we have to offer here in Coeur d'Alene because it belongs to us all. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Vieira. Okay, our next commenter is Jay Del Sasso. Not sure if I got that right.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, this is your time to make public comments.
Okay, thank you. My name is Julie Del Sasso. I live near the Spokane River. I'm very familiar with NIM's activity. I do a lot of swimming in the bays because they're shallow. And I'm concerned that the Department of Lands and DEQ are not taking into consideration that they already approved Wolf Lodge Bay. And if they're looking at year-round work at Cougar Bay, especially in the summer when Wolf Lodge is operational, the department is creating a barging traffic issue, and the scope of barging with construction materials on our lake is not just limited to Cougar Bay and Wolf Lodge Bay, but we have other log companies in other bays, two in particular, that are wanting the same privilege to transfer their littoral rights from one bay where they own property and make it allowed somewhere else. This is not routine. This is a very big change from the law. And because NIM does this work and inherited a lot of the type of work, they've grown into a lot of work that has been normalized. And we need some standards. For example, what are the alternatives to a flotilla on our lake? We can do it upslope. There are already laws on the books about materials being taken off the lake at the end of the day and how to use a trash boom with a separate permit. So what type of unavoidable impacts could occur along vessel routes? For now, we know we're looking at 2 sites that are going to be a primary route. So we are going to have invasive species of weeds. We could have resuspension of existing contaminated soils. If they're drilling pilings, maybe 30, are we going into the sediment of the lake bed? So I believe that DEQ needs to have something on the books for specifics on how to manage this level of industrial growth on our lake before there's any permitting. And I noticed this is a joint permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I understand that they had no comment because there's no dredging. But the work that is being done, barging around the lake from construction site to construction site, and now new around the clock, around the year, flotillas with work and lights and noise on our lake is totally new. So I have a lot of comments. I did a lot of work on this, but I guess overall, when I looked at the Wolf Lodge Bay conditions, every single condition can be met either by permitting at the Kootenai County or by permitting at Cougar Bay through Department of Lands. And we already said no, but no one is listening to the fish, the osprey, the beautiful area. So in some ways, I feel like this is a parallel process to the non-compliance settlement. And Mr. Condon is not taking no for an answer at Cougar Bay, so he's continuing 10 years later to feel the pain. It's beautiful there because people all over this county have protected it. We fought off submerged land threats by McCormick. It goes on and on. Please listen to the people. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Now we have Rod Stack.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's Rod Stack, S-T-A-C-H, and I live at 1260 Conservation Court on up on the ridge where the privileged people, according to Mr. Condon, live. Just a little side note, Mr. Condon, I rode the school bus out of Cougar Gulch, and my wife rode the school bus out of Kit Island Bay and rode around Cougar Bay. And I'm 66 and she's 63. So we're not newcomers to the bay. So, and that junk has been on there, not temporarily. It's been on there for a couple years now, sitting in that bay, just rotting away. Here's the view that I got off my front porch. I took that photo off my front porch of Mr. Condon and his work crew. If you can see, there's the beach. Got a beautiful view of Lake Coeur d'Alene from the beach of all his industrial equipment. So as I read through the comments regarding this permit application, I can't help but notice the names of people who have sent in letters of support for Mr. Condon's project. 90% of those people are outsiders, basically people who do not live in the bay. First of all, there was 3 original courtesy notifications sent out by the Idaho Department of Lands to neighbors of the project. Those neighbors do own land in the bay, but they do not live near the bay, with some living out of state like North Carolina. Out of these 13 so-called neighbors, there wasn't a single member of the 118 residents that make up the Cougar Bay Water Association. Then you have other outsiders like Leslie Duncan, Kootenai County Commissioner. Cougar Bay is not in her district. Nick Snyder of Kootenai County Parks, the mayor of Post Falls, Ron Jacobson. That's a mystery to me. He doesn't live in the bay. Greg Delavan of the Coeur d'Alene Lakeshore Property Owners. Those are the group that want to move their docks into our Cougar Bay. They want to winterize their docks in our bay from down south. And of course, the majority of them will be paying money to Mr. Condon. Then you have State Representative Jim Addis, to which Cougar Bay, again, is not in his district. We're District 3, he's in District 4. And then State Senator Don Cheatham. They seem to have forgotten that they represent all the people, not that just their buddy John Condon. Not one of those people live in Cougar Bay. And I have to ask the question, by giving support to Mr. John Condon, are they saying they support John Condon's illegal storage activities in Cougar Bay? Because he's been storing stuff illegally in Cougar Bay, along with that barge I just showed you a picture of. That ties up to the pilings that they drove in to support the osprey nests. There's no osprey nests on those pilings. That's where he's tying up his barge and all his junk docks. Believe me, this whole thing would be a different story if the growing junk pile and proposed project were in one of those county employees' yards. As I read through the support letters, I keep seeing the phrase, why not Cougar Bay? It's been that way for 100 years. Really, people? It's like saying, we've always done it like this, so it must be okay. Well, it's not okay. It's illegal.
Your letter says it.
There's an old saying, a man's integrity is defined by his actions, not his words. Through its actions in Cougar Bay, North Idaho Maritime has shown that it's a company that cannot be trusted to do the right thing. These actions have shown a total disregard for the Idaho Department of Lands and the laws and regulations governing Idaho's lakes and streams, a total disregard for the lake's environment, and a total disregard for the residents who live and travel around the lake. This end of the lake is the most congested part of the lake, and this project would be a huge safety and environmental hazard and ruin the aesthetics of the lake. Please do not reward this illegal behavior by awarding North Idaho Maritime a permit to continue. It would be a precedence that would affect future decisions. I highly encourage the permit be denied and we have some enforcement to stop the current unauthorized activity and have the floating hazards cleaned up and removed from the bay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Del Ceso, I believe that you need to mute your mic, please. We're getting some feedback from your line. If you could please do that. Okay, next on our sign-in list is a representative from Cougar Bay Estates.
Hello, my name is Nikki Greendyke. I've been nominated by my parents, Gail and Spencer Greendyke. Green, like the color, D as in David, Y-K-E is how you spell it. We've lived here for 15 years. We built this property. We were originally going to live out in Black Rock Bay, but because of the beautiful vistas and the beautiful view that has now been obstructed, as you can see by my lovely picture, by Mr. Condon's business, we've just been a little concerned, and we would like to address the fact that we would like his permit to be denied. Mr. Condon had mentioned that we don't have the right to basically, sorry, I'm a little nervous, sorry. But we don't have the right to basically counter his business. We don't want to begrudge him the right to have a business. It's the fact that it's encroaching on our expensive homes and views that we've used as an investment into this community, into the Coeur d'Alene community. The property values will suffer from the continued use of the bay as a trash heap that's basically been used illegally for years now. We understand that he's providing a real service for the dock owners, but that would in turn view that he should increase his fees to these dock owners to service, as his attorney had mentioned, that it's sometimes difficult to remove the docks from the land. Well, then shouldn't the dock owners then be responsible for higher pay in removing said docks instead of us being subjected to the disposal of their property, basically using our beautiful bay as a garbage dump? So again, we'd just like to urge you to reject his proposal.
Okay, next is Christine Fritz.
Hi, this is Christine Fritz, F-R-I-T-Z,
And my husband and I have lived here on Cougar Bay for the last 23 years. So we have seen lots of changes, and unfortunately not for the better, in Cougar Bay. We've continued to see increase in the debris, broken docks. I know that I'm sure not all of them are Mr. Condon's. I can appreciate that. I'm not sure whose they are, but they happen to come into our bay, oftentimes even blocking our exit out of our own dock to get out into the lake. And I agree with the comments made by Mr. Gross and Mr. Stack, and I too, my husband and I, please do not approve the permit. We love this area, love Cougar Bay. It's so close to town and yet feels like you're far away. And the beauty of it is being spoiled by this continued debris that we see in and around our bay. So that's all I have to say. And please, again, don't approve the permit. Thank you.
Next, we have John Hammett.
I think I got that unmuted. To the degree that meetings like this take a head count of people for and against, I wanted to come out for my wife and I that were very much against these docks there and what they do. I was interested in Mr. Condon admitted he calls them garbage. And I don't know why we have to watch him stage garbage, the garbage that he should dispose of some other place. Other than that, I would like to know if he has paid any fees to Coeur d'Alene City, the county, the state, or any other agency for the use he's had since 2004. I'd like him to speak to that. And other than that, I just want to say I support all the other comments from my friends and neighbors here. Thanks.
So that is everyone that indicated through the Zoom chat box that they would like to make a comment. Was there anyone else that is joining us through Zoom today that would like the opportunity to submit a public comment?
Yeah.
All right, well, hearing none, I noticed that there is one individual that had joined us by phone. An 801 number. Would you like to provide a comment at this time?
Real specific about why you say no.
Okay, then at this time, I'd like to ask the Idaho Department of Land staff for their representative.
Good evening. My name is Mike Amer, and I am the Lands Resource Supervisor for the MICRA Supervisor Area Office of the Idaho Department of Lands. I'd like to start off by thanking everybody for participating in this process today. It's definitely a little different with COVID, but we've received a lot of comments written. We've got people participating on the computer, we have people calling, we have people in the office. So I appreciate everyone being part of this public process for us as we make this decision. My purpose in being here today is to provide you with information regarding IDL's assessment of application for encroachment permit L95S5084 filed by North Idaho Maritime. My hearing statement is a part of the record, so I'm going to read about the timeline. I'm going to glance over and kind of skip over some of the rules that we look into, and then get into kind of our conclusion section. Through the course of the past couple of days after the hearing statement was submitted, we have made some additional notes. So we'll be submitting the revised version of this statement at the end of the hearing or first thing tomorrow morning. I'll try to make a point of when I mention something that is outside of the actual statement that's on the file. So the applicant is seeking an encroachment permit for a 5-acre winter storage area and a 2-acre year-round work area in Cougar Bay on Lake Coeur d'Alene. I'm going to touch upon the timeline of how IDL has processed this from the beginning. Back in April 20th of 2020, IDL issued a notice of noncompliance to North Idaho Maritime for its dock storage area in Cougar Bay because NIM did not have an encroachment permit for that activity. On May 20th, 2020, North Idaho Maritime submitted their original encroachment permit application. On May 21st, North Idaho Maritime responded to that original notice of noncompliance letter. On June 1st, IDL extended the deadline for North Idaho Maritime to file a complete application. On June 19th, 2020, IDL sent a letter to North Idaho Maritime informing them that their application was still incomplete. On July 20th, 2020, North Idaho Maritime submitted a revised encroachment permit application. And then on July 27th, they submitted additional information on that application. On August 13th, 2020, IDL sent a copy of the application to adjacent neighbors and the local resource agencies and submitted an advertisement for the Coeur d'Alene Press. The advertisement for the Coeur d'Alene Press ran on August 19th, 2020 and August 26th, 2020. On September 4th, North Idaho submitted a revised drawing changing the location of the winter dock storage and year-round work area. This was the final submittal and the last revision or update to the application. On September 9th, IDL resends a copy of the application with the revised drawing to adjacent neighbors and to the local resource agencies. On October 5th, IDL Director Justin Miller issued a notice of appointment of hearing coordinator and public hearing. And on October 7th and October 14th, IDL submitted an advertisement to be run in the Coeur d'Alene Press regarding the revised application, as well as information on the time, date, and location of the public hearing. September 18th through October 27th, IDL receives neighbors' consent to application forms from Tom Burns, Edwin Hagland, Martha Cornwall McCain, and David Yadam. October 2nd through the 29th, IDL receives comments from members of the public. October 20th, IDL receives comments from Idaho State Department of Agriculture, Idaho Department of Fish and Game, and IDEQ. And on the 29th, the hearing coordinator issued amended notice of hearing regarding the exchange of exhibits and official notice. So that is the official timeline for how IDL received all the documents and processed. The next section of the hearing statement talks about the applicable legal provisions that we looked at when reviewing and processing the application. I'm going to skip over that section because it's, for lack of a better phrase, it's kind of some legalese about our rules and regulations. And again, these can be found on the hearing record as IDL's hearing statement. So I'm going to skip to page 4 of the hearing statement, section number 3, IDL's analysis of the application's compliance with the Lake Protection Act and rules. Page 9 of the amended application provides that the applicant owns littoral rights at his property, AIN number 111552. IDL confirmed via Kootenai County's GIS webpage that John and Gayla Condon Living Trust own Kootenai County parcel AIN 111552. This property is adjacent to Lake Coeur d'Alene and Wolf Lodge Bay. The lease agreement provided with the application between John and Gayla Condon and North Idaho Maritime for this littoral property demonstrates that applicant is a lessee of littoral rights and is therefore eligible to apply for an encroachment permit pursuant to IDAPA 20.03.04.020.02. The location of the proposed encroachments is in Cougar Bay and not within nor near the applicant's littoral right area in Wolf Lodge Bay. Historically, Cougar Bay was used as a log storage area, as can be seen in aerial images from Google Earth dated September 27, 2005. IDL leased a portion of the bed of Cougar Bay to Foss Maritime between 2000 and 2009 for log storage area. In 2008, North Idaho Maritime and Murphy Marine applied together for an encroachment permit for a dock storage area. But after holding a public hearing, the application was denied. In 2010, Murphy Marine Construction applied for a dock storage area, and after a public hearing, that permit was granted. Currently, there are some docks being stored in Cougar Bay, by Murphy Marine Construction. North Idaho Maritime is seeking authorization for 2 uses. A winter storage area to, quote, bring floating encroachments to Cougar Bay with 1 2-man crew and tugboat. They'll be tied together and secured to existing pylon with rope. These will be stored from October through May, end quote. And then they're also asking for a designated work area to include the intermittent storage of miscellaneous docks for repair, resale, and disposal all year round. Along with repairs, this area would be suitable for assembly of modular dock sections that are built off-site. IDL has determined that North Idaho Maritime is seeking an encroachment permit for a winter dock storage or winter storage area, as well as a year-round work area. The winter storage area is for quote unquote floating encroachments, which may include navigational encroachments such as single-family docks and non-navigational encroachments such as boat garages, float homes. IDL also notes that it has no jurisdiction over tugs and barges. Those are vessels. The LPA rules do not have specific size limitations for winter dock storage areas or year-round work areas. IDAPA section 20.03.04.030.02 states that IDL will normally not approve encroachments not an aid to navigation unless there is a major environmental, economic, or social benefit to the general public. In the narrative to the application, the applicant states the storing of docks in the winter months prevents docks from being damaged and become floating navigational hazards. Previous public hearings on dock storage have demonstrated an acknowledged need for this activity for the same reasons. The proposed winter storage location appears to be located more than 400 feet from the closest encroachment along West Blackwell Mill Road, over 500 feet from Skip Murphy's winter dock storage area, and over 1,200 feet from Skip Murphy's marine construction area and the adjacent Blackwell Island Marina. Based on the length of the permitted encroachments extending from shore in this area and the distances from the proposed uses from these encroachments, this encroachment would be located beyond line of navigability and outside anyone's littoral right area. IDL has previously issued at least 4 encroachment permits in the past for winter dock storage areas on Lake Coeur d'Alene, including the previous one mentioned in Cougar Bay. Conclusion. There is a need for winter dock storage so that docks do not become damaged by winter storms and winter conditions and become floating hazards throughout the lake. Each lake in North Idaho is unique, especially the 3 largest. Lake Pend Oreille tends to have 95% or more of fixed pier docks, as opposed to floating docks like Lake Coeur d'Alene, due to the extreme water level change each year with the Albany Falls Dam. As such, there's no need to store docks in the winter on Lake Pend Oreille, as they're all fixed into the ground. Priest Lake tends to have a lot of sandy beaches, and docks can be pulled up on shore and can rest on the sand through the winter. Lake Coeur d'Alene has a long, relatively narrow channel that runs the length of the lake, and most of the shoreline of the lake is rocky. While there are some sandy areas, it would not be considered a lake known for its sandy shores. Most of the docks that go into winter dock storage come from the main channel of Lake Coeur d'Alene. We know this because when we, IDL staff, need to do aerial imagery for permits and compliances, several of the historical images are from the winter or spring when the water is lower and the docks are in storage on that main channel. You can usually see docks remain in the bays and other portions of the lake year-round, but docks on this main channel are all predominantly removed in the wintertime. Previous public hearings and applications for winter dock storage also mentioned the need for safety lighting along the perimeter of the storage area, as well as a maintenance plan for the log booms and cables to secure all of the docks in place. On the application, the applicant did not provide any figures showing lighting. They did not provide a maintenance plan. And on number 16 of the application, they state that the docks will be secured to the piling by rope to be secured for the winter. IDL is not confident that rope can secure hundreds of docks throughout the winter. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, IDEQ, submitted comments on October 1st, 2020. IDEQ recommended that no demolition debris shall be allowed to fall to the lake bed or be dragged to shore, and that demolition debris be disposed of in an upland location where it cannot re-enter the water. Additionally, they recommended that in the event inert demolition debris falls into the lake, a diver shall be deployed to retrieve the material within 5 calendar days, and if the material is toxic or hazardous, it must be removed immediately. Idaho Fish and Game submitted comments on September 1st and September 25th of 2020. The correspondence on September 25th was to state that there was no need to revise their earlier submitted comments on the application due to IDL sending out that revised application to the agencies a second time. The original correspondence on September 1st stated how docks and the shade they provide can benefit fish species such as smallmouth, bass, and northern pike, which have become widespread in the lake. Additionally, IDFG stated docks can be detrimental to fish habitat and public angling opportunities, although the edges of that dock storage area would be attractive to predator and warmer water species, as well as anglers. Fish and Game recommended that the storage area should be kept to a footprint as small as possible and be located away from the Cougar Creek Channel, as well as away from marshy areas popular with waterfowl hunters. Idaho State Department of Agriculture submitted comments on September 16th, 2020, stating that there was a relatively new Eurasian milfoil area in Cougar Bay and recommended the applicant provide an aquatic noxious weed spread prevention plan. Several of the public comments in objection to the application speak about the aesthetics of dock storage and how the bay has recently been used as more of a year-round dumping ground as opposed to just a winter dock storage area. Basing the decision whether to issue a permit on aesthetic values is a very difficult challenge, as aesthetic values tend to be subjective in nature. There is a significant public benefit from storing floating encroachments through the winter. As stated above, the storing of docks prevents them from being damaged and becoming floating hazards throughout the lake, as well as from washing up on shore and becoming another waterfront owner's problem to deal with. Cougar Bay is a no-wake zone with piling and deadheads located throughout. Boating is required to be slow, and it does not appear to be a safety issue in that bay. Additionally, the storage occurs in the winter months when the water is lower and colder, and there is much less public recreating on the water. However, allowing a year-round area in Cougar Bay prevents the public from utilizing a portion of the lake during the prime summer months, and it ensures that all members of the public see floating encroachments in Cougar Bay all year long. IDL does not see a significant benefit to the public by allowing a year-round work area in Cougar Bay. Waterfront owners need to take responsibility for their encroachments. Docks that need to be resold or repaired can remain at the waterfront property until it's accomplished, or it could be removed and taken off the water and stored. The public should not have to endure floating encroachments during the peak summer season, so that a few waterfront owners can get new docks in summer and store their old dock in the lake until it resells. This is a new section that got added into the statement. Debris being dumped at North Idaho Maritime's proposed dock storage area should be the responsibility of North Idaho Maritime. If debris was being dumped at North Idaho Maritime's Hutter facility, it would be their responsibility to clean it up. One would assume they would likely have fencing, lighting, or cameras in place to protect their property. If year-round work area is approved and debris gets dumped into North Idaho Maritime's area, it would be assumed then that North Idaho Maritime would have to pay for and take care of all that debris. IDL recommends denying the year-round construction area, and if the winter storage area is approved, that the following specific terms and conditions be applied to the permit. Number 1, a lighting and maintenance plan shall be submitted to IDL prior to permit issuance. Lighting plan shall meet U.S. Coast Guard and/or Kootenai County Sheriff regulations and requirements. Maintenance plan shall address rope or other means to secure docks to piling and should include scheduled site inspections. The applicant shall work with IDFG to ensure the storage location is not adjacent to the Cougar Creek Channel or marshy areas for waterfowl hunters. Floating encroachments should only be stored from October to May of each year. If weather conditions force deviations to the schedule, the applicant shall notify IDL MICA area office with at least 1 week's notice. 4, the applicant shall provide at least 2 maintenance updates per winter season to the IDL MICA area office, ensuring that all the floating encroachments are secure. 5, no demolition debris shall be allowed to fall to the lake bed or be dragged to shore, and demolition debris shall be disposed of in an upland location where it cannot re-enter the water. In the event inert demolition debris falls in the lake, a diver shall be deployed to retrieve the material within 5 days, and if the material is toxic or hazardous, it must be removed immediately. Number 6, the applicant shall ensure that no noxious weeds are established or spread through the activities under their permit. Number 7, the applicant shall enter into a submerged lands lease with IDL. Number 8, this is a new, I have 3 new conditions that do not show up on the hearing statement. Number 8, log boom must be removed during summer months while docks are not in storage or floating encroachments are not in storage. Log boom cannot remain on water year round. Number 9, per IDAPA 20.03.04.02.04, piling can be replaced, but there can be no net increase in piling locations without going through the permit process. Number 10, prior to any future enhancements, IDL requires plans showing inventory of existing piling and locations of new piling before they're placed. And that is all that I have for our hearing statement. As I said before, the hearing statement is part of the record. There have been some additions to the hearing statement since it was submitted on Monday, and Department of Lands will submit it to the hearing officer most likely tomorrow morning, but definitely by the close of business day tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Amer. I do have a question for you. In the department's hearing statement that was provided yesterday, there was reference that IDL has previously issued at least 4 encroachment permits in the past for winter dock storage areas on Lake Coeur d'Alene. While my responsibility as hearing coordinator is specifically related to considering this application, I am interested in the department's position on these types of applications. So I would like to request in the documents that the department provided with the exhibits in the record yesterday, there was a copy of 1 encroachment permit application for winter dock storage. If there is in fact a total of 4 that have been issued, I would like to request the remaining 3 copies of the remaining 3 as well. If you could include those with the record by the close of business tomorrow.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go back to North Idaho Maritime, we have one more public witness comment. Dan Norcini would like to make a comment. Dan, if you would like to go ahead.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Michelle. This is Dan Norcini. Last name is Norcini. I am the president of the Homeowners Association for the Ridge at Cougar Bay. Some of the people that you see here at the meeting on the Zoom are neighbors and residents of that subdivision. We have 79 lots in here, so it's not a small subdivision. It's a rather good-sized subdivision, and I guess I take exception to, particularly I was reading the comments online, the mayor of Post Falls, where he basically says that don't let a small group of people influence IDL's decision. And I thought, well, a small group of people, 79 members in an HOA, not to mention all the people who live around the bays, I think is a rather significant number, to be honest with you. So in listening to Mr. Condon speaking, I guess the other thing that is rather troubling for me is most of the people that I talk to in the neighborhood when we discuss this issue in the Bay, there's not one of them that I know of who begrudges Mr. Condon his business. Most of us up here are very fiercely independent. We're conservative. We believe in laissez-faire type of government, so we like private property rights. We understand that. But I don't think Mr. Condon quite understands the fact that the lake is a public property. It's not private property. And so when he comes in to do his business in there, he is essentially running his business and affecting us, the rest of the public. So I took exception to his representation, I should say his characterization of us as a privileged group of people that surround the lake. Mr. Condon, I work hard. I think most of the people I know in this subdivision worked hard. We labor very hard, long hours. We've sacrificed to get where we were. So their money didn't fall into our laps to purchase this property. We earned it, just like you earned your income. So I don't think you ought to characterize us as a bunch of privileged people. So number 2, I think we would be more amenable to Mr. Condon's request if in the past he had showed some respect for us as neighbors who live around this bay. We have to look at his trash. We have to look at the mess that's in there. And as one of the people who were speaking was saying, yes, it's harder to get those docks out of there. It's harder to dispose of them, but that should factor into the cost he charges his customers. You know, frankly, that's not our concern. We have to look at that trash and that garbage that continues to accumulate in there. So if it's a situation where it's harder for him to get it out of there, well, then take the necessary steps to get it out of there and charge more to your customers. So why would we have to suffer for that? So essentially, the last thing I want to add in here too is it's the year-round aspect of this storage that's very disturbing to us as well. We can understand that you move them over there in the winter. I don't think anybody here particularly likes to see that stuff there. The numbers been increasing, but if it would vanish and disappear and move out of there during the main season, the boating season, when people are out there kayaking and swimming and enjoying nature, that would be one thing, but that stuff sits there practically year-round anymore. And so that's something that we all are opposed to. And so again, we would, I would, on behalf of the HOA here, ask the IDL to deny Mr. Condon's request. Thank you.
All right, I want to make sure that no one else was missed. Do we have any additional public witnesses that would like to make comment at this time? And so you can just unmute yourself and speak up if you would like. All right, then. Well, hearing no response, then we'll turn it back over to North Idaho Maritime to respond to any of the issues that were raised and make closing remarks.
Thank you once again, John Condon, John-C-O-N-D-O-N, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So I would like to open with this. It certainly was not my intention to offend anybody, but I'm fighting for my livelihood here. And I feel like I've been unfairly treated here. I've been branded as many things from many of the comments that are quite honestly untruthful as regards to me creating all of the debris out in Cougar Bay. That is quite honestly untrue. And we have taken great measures to clean up the debris that we in fact have created. And we continue to do so, and we will continue to do so. I think it's important to recognize that there is no new impact on the lake. No new impact. We're proposing to clean up what's there, to repair the facilities that are there and better manage that area out there. And once again, I will restate that we have been trying for 12 years to do this so that we could manage that out there better. And we will, and that is what we will endeavor to do. I can honestly say to those that question my character that I don't always get it right the first time, every time, but I will always, always endeavor to do the right thing. I would also like to point out the fact that there was several pictures of this new industrial equipment and so forth on the lake. That barge in question that's been presented several times was launched and deployed in 1973. Since that time, it's always been moored in Cougar Bay. No change, nothing new. The mention about Wolf Lodge is currently not permitted for this activity of storage, and it is not, because of the water depths and the exposure to it, is not suited for this activity that we are asking you to approve here today. I'd also like to, and I do appreciate, constructive evidence that's presented, and we would consider sitting down and looking at a different configuration if it's more aesthetically pleasing. We worked with what infrastructure was already in place. And that infrastructure was put in place at a time when this process was not necessary. And it was put into place by those people that were familiar with the lake and the winds and the currents in an area that was best suited for that storage. It wasn't just put in the easiest place. It was put in a particular place for those reasons. As to the question of us driving piling out there to park our equipment, that is categorically false. We have never driven any piling out in Cougar Bay. We have merely made use of the existing piling in Cougar Bay. Speaking of Cougar Bay, I think it is noteworthy, and it has been mentioned, and I totally agree, that Cougar Bay, it belongs to not one particular group, it belongs to every citizen of the state of Idaho. And that's why I do think it's important to include testimony from people that represent the citizens of the great state of Idaho. Not a particular group, but the entire citizenship of the state of Idaho. The Department of Lands has to manage those properties in the public trust to the best of their abilities, to the benefit of the majority. That's what I'm asking you to do. Secondly to that, to answer to Mr. Hammett's question, we have paid fees to the state for the use of Cougar Bay. In addition to that, we have at our own expense disposed of tens of thousands of dollars of debris that was not our debris. So we have incurred those costs in an effort to try to maintain some kind of semblance out there in that bay. But I can only do so much as well. That's why we ask you to allow us to define the area, to improve the area, to put up lighting and cameras as suggested, so that we can do that and benefit everybody and also be more aesthetically pleasing to everyone. I would also say this, that we are more than willing and able to take any of those suggestions, to take any of those requirements that the IDL will come up with and comply with those. We're on the same team here. We're on the same page here. We have a proven need, and we are willing to put forth the effort and the capital necessary to address that need in the best possible method we can. And I'm more than willing, if somebody's got, better ideas. But I've been at this for this particular issue for 12 years now. If there was a better place to do this, I would be there. Lastly, I do want to address the work area. It is two different issues. The storage is one thing, and I think most people agree with that. But those that would question the work area have never been out on the lake. They've never been working on a dock in the main channel of the lake during the busy season where there's storms and boat traffic. And it puts our guys at risk. And it's simply not doable. They've never been on the lake when you're responding after these windstorms where you have multitudes of damage and debris that you can't deal with on site. You need a protected harbor to do so. It can't be conducted out on the lake. It's simply not safe or practical. So with that, I would once again open it to any questions you might have of me.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. I do have a couple questions for you. Currently, today, what property and equipment does North Idaho Marine have stored at the proposed permit location?
I was not out at the property today. I can't honestly answer that question.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up to that, as of today, has North Idaho Marine moved docks for winter storage to the proposed permit location?
Most likely, yes. We had some verbal agreements with, like I say, I started this, this whole process with Roger Jansen 12 years ago, maybe 15. We've had ongoing discussions about this. We've not ignored the situation. We've been trying to address the situation. We've been more than willing to sit down with the IDL to figure out this problem. So yes, we do have dogs out there. Yes, we have had verbal discussions with the staff of IDL about temporary measures to be taken until we can have this hearing. This hearing got postponed many times, not by the fault of anyone in particular, other than the fact that this new COVID world we're dealing with. I have never, ever avoided this hearing for 12 years. I don't know if that adequately answers your question, but that does to the best of my abilities.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you everyone for taking time to participate in the public hearing. The next procedural steps are laid out in the Notice of Appointment of Hearing Coordinator, which states as follows. In accordance with Idaho Code Section 67-5245, the hearing coordinator shall submit a preliminary order to the Director of IDL, who shall then issue a final order no more than 30 days after the conclusion of the hearing. As provided in Idaho Code Section 67-5240, the contested case provisions of the Idaho Administrative Procedures Act do not apply where the legislature has directed the use of alternative procedures. Because the legislature has enacted specific alternative procedures in Idaho Code Section 58-1306 that require a final order to be issued within 30 days of the hearing and leave insufficient time to consider petitions for review of the preliminary order, the procedures of Idaho Code Section 67-5245 addressing petitions for review of preliminary orders are not applicable. As I stated in my introductory comments, any documents presented by public witnesses that have not been uploaded today need to be mailed to Courtney Romine. Then that email address is kromine@idl.idaho.gov by 5 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, November 5th. No new written comments or no new documents will be admitted into the record after that time. Yes, Mr. Condon?
I would like to make one last comment if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
So you already spoke of the 4 permitted dog storage areas. I think also it's worth reviewing that there's also 2 work areas permitted on Coeur d'Alene. That's all I have. Thank you. In addition to 4 storage areas, there's also 2 work areas.
Okay,
year-round work areas. Thank you.
Thank you for stating that for the record, Mr. Condon. Other than the documents discussed during this hearing, anything that might be received after I close this hearing in a few minutes will not be part of the administrative record and will not be considered by me in issuing the preliminary order. Having reached the hour of 7:51 p.m. Pacific time, I now adjourn this hearing. Thank you for your attendance and participation this evening.
Thank you for your help, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
The docs.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.